Hello. It's so important this stream. The alert went out twice on Discord, so that's off to a grand start. AC, hello. Connor, hello. Harand, hello. Julian, hello. Matthias, hello. Yes, I'm feeling well. I'm feeling much better than I was than that week. I now have a cold, which is separate and infinitely better than whatever I had before. So if I sound a bit nasally, you just have to suck it up like I am and put up with it. Blurry, hello. Quacko, here somewhere. It's been 3 weeks, I think, and I have no idea what I'm doing, so that's fine. I had a little look at the code before I did run it. Yeah, it's... So yeah, I don't know exactly. I'm pretty sure I had COVID combined with some other stuff, which won me a not so short trip in the NHS hotel, which was fun. And then I was just basically bedbound for a week after that. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is, but I couldn't stand. I couldn't look at my phone. I couldn't keep my head up. The whole world was spinning as well. I had a pretty miserable time, and it was touch and go whether I was going to be able to go on holiday. But I did go on holiday, and I had a grand old time, and which was good. And I have developed a tan line, which my wife informs me is ridiculous. So with my widow's peak, it now looks like I just have 2 white cat ears on my face. AC still being a member, which is exciting. Yep, and then I picked up a cold in Florida. I'm also I'm chronically allergic to Florida. I don't know what's going on there, but I was just riddled with allergies for like 2 weeks. Yeah, so I had a little look before, and I was like, I can't remember any of this, and I can't remember what I was going to do. I did procure a second lightsaber though, so that was probably the highlight of the trip. It was Disney World, Florida, for 2 weeks with family. Obviously, I didn't just go by myself, and I'm pretty much over the jet lag now, which is exciting. And I just have this miserable cold that I'm just battling the tail end of. So we shall see. I think I need to change something. Where is it? I meant to change something before we started, but I can't remember what it was. Because I'm a professional and I know exactly what I'm doing. Is it this? Is it this? Oh, no, whatever. Can't remember what I was doing. Okay. Okay, so I ran the code earlier, and there is a pretty miserable bug in which sometimes the rendering just doesn't work. There's a non-deterministic bug in the renderer, so we're going to fix that at some point. But let's just see what happens. Oh, before I was ill, I made a few small changes, and then earlier on I made a couple of other small changes just to kind of get back into the habit of it. So what did I do? If you remember, we have the embedded resource loader, which is a pain adding all these, right? So what I did was super quick in and out Python script. I lashed this together, which will code gen all the hash embed directives. So now our embedded resource has all of these in, okay, which is great. This now takes bloody ages to compile, which is not great. So what I then did was I extended the config to have the an option which is controlled by a CMake, which basically says use embedded resource loader or not, and then I integrated that into main. So So now we have this, right? So by default, it will use the file resource loader so we can iterate fast, but the CI is designed to set the flag, which means it takes slightly long to build, but it will bundle all the resources in. So the produced artifact, if you will, the produced binary will still have all the resources in, so there's no need to ship anything separately or anything like that. So that was something I did. What else did I do? Oh, that was it. The way it works in the moment is you have like free mouse movement and WASD key movement, but when you open up the debug UI, the mouse stops moving the camera, because that makes sense, because you want to click on the UI elements. I've changed it so if you now hold down shift, you can still move it around. It's just handy for looking around. I wanted to make it so that right click moves the camera. It felt more intuitive, more like a 3D like rendering software. However, there's nowhere in the code that handles right clicks at the moment, so I thought that'd be something to do live at some point. It's just generic mouse click. The game is very unopinionated on which button you press. So that's good. So, well, it's not good. That's something to do. And then I just edited it so that all the... Let's see if I can get it up. The debug render targets that it slaps at the bottom, it now also includes the depth buffer. Okay, so that works. So this is where we got to, right? So there's a couple of things here to fix. I need to remember how it works. There's no... It loads all the text, the models, right? But it only pulls out the albedo texture, and we're just using the default specular and normal map at the moment. So that's the first thing we need to fix, is to pull those out specifically for those models. I don't think it'll take. I don't think it'll take too long. And then after that, we need a better way of editing these. So all these are kind of like sub-meshes at the moment. So we need to probably have this concept of like a top-level mesh with sub-meshes, and picking based on the AAB of like all of them. There's a whole load of like mechanics that we need to kind of run through because what I want is to preload all the models in the file available to us, and then have a drop-down menu which says like, oh, I want like this cross-section piece, I want a corner piece, I want a window, and then we can build like a level editor. I think that's before we do physics, before we do a job scheduler, before we do any like skinning or anything like that. I think we need to be able to build out a level with all the props that we've got. Sorry, questions. Is there any reason why a game would use Win32 API on Windows and SDL on Linux? I mean, it's impossible to know what the kind of requirements were at the time and the kind of development process. If Linux came later, it might have been easier just to slap SDL on and then not rewrite all the Windows code. I can imagine that being the case. If you've got a Windows team, they're like, oh, someone said we need to do a Linux port. It might be easier just to bolt on SDL to get all that functionality for you. And then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that could possibly be the case. I'm itching to use Reflection. It should be coming. So Reflection is now in GCC trunk. It's scheduled for 16, which I think should be coming out in a few months. And I'm going to reflect the shit out of so much stuff. I don't really have any concrete ideas yet. I like the idea, because we're using vertex pulling, I like the idea of generating shader code based on structs to automatically like generate those. I think that might be a fun use case for it. And at some point, we're going to have to do serialization, right? Like at some point we're going to want to be able to load and save the state of the world. So I think Reflection might be quite a good fun use case for that. Yeah, and a pretty good day. And yeah, I've already been playing around with Reflection in like other projects, so I've got kind of a bit of an idea of, I've got a rough idea of how it works, but it's been a while since I looked at it. Right, anyway, so if I do FNF1, so now we have, at the bottom here, we have the albedo, the world normal map, the world position, the specular, and the depth buffer. So here, the bug, I don't know if you've noticed, the bug is here. We are experiencing the bug, because notice how I'm using the arrow keys and it's updating all the bottoms, but this is not updating. I don't know why. And now if I close this, right, I've closed you have to believe me, I've closed the debug menu. So nothing happened, and then I reopen it, and then, oh, and now it's working again. Sure. Yes, I just, well, because I'm rapidly losing hair on top of my head, I have to wear a hat, otherwise I burn my big bald dome. So I'm always wearing a hat outside. So this is the where the rim of the hat comes on my face. There's some weird rendered targets. Yeah, I think so. Whoa, yeah, look at that. Anyway, at the moment, all the picking is kind of done per sub-object. So we need to fix this. There's definitely like some, I don't know if you can see it, is there's some weird ghosting here, like, and then it goes. So I don't know. If I hold shift now, I can move the mouse. If I let go of shift, then that's fine. So that's all good. Yeah, there's kind of a lot to do still. So the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out how to pull out the normal map. So this is going to be a bit of a refresher for us all, because I can't remember how any of this works. So I know that somewhere down here we create the scene. So hang on, we load the model here, right? So this models is a collection of model data, right? And model data is the actual okay, fine. Is the actual mesh data, right? So the raw vertices and indices, and then optional texture data. And the texture data is again the actual texture. So this is a real heavy struct. This. Yeah, everything's 3D models, right? So it's all just triangles all the way down, mate. Anyway, so model data. So we do a pretty heavy load operation here, and load all these out, and then we construct our scene, set up the lights and the camera and all that gubbins. Then we go through the models that we've loaded, and then we insert them into the scene. Okay, and there's certain things we need to do for the scene. The entity needs a name. It needs a view over the mesh data. It needs a transformation matrix, and then it needs the index into the global array of materials that it's going to use for rendering, because we use bindless textures, right? So in the GPU, every single texture exists in one global array, and then you just index into them. And for simplicity, the three textures that we use at the moment, albedo, normal, and specular, are kind of by convention always next to each other. So you just have to give it the index of the first one, then it knows that this +1 +2 is this respectively are the bits that we need. Strong texture name that I've come up with here. Obviously, I was in a bit of a rush when I was doing that. But we basically say, hey, does the model have an albedo texture? And if it does, or albedo texture data technically, right? If it does, then we construct a texture object. We wham that at high speed into the texture manager, which owns it and just owns it. I think the texture manager just owns it, but it also maintains the global array of textures on the GPU. So it'll grow that as you add more as needed. And does any sort of synchronization that it needs to. And then we load the material. Here we go. So the material is the albedo index, and then text index 1 and 2 are just our test textures, right? So again, you can see here, we add these textures, right? Which is the diamond floor, albedo, normal, and specular. So that's why we're using those, because texture 1 and 2 will be the normal map and the specular map. I always assume albedo and color were the same thing. Maybe I'm showing my ignorance. think there's always, I mean, so the question is like, will AI be? I don't want to talk loads and loads about AI sake, because I feel like I've done that plenty of streams before. But it's a reasonable question. It's like, would AI ever be able to write this? I think everything I'm writing now, AI would churn out pretty good. Maybe not the full architecture, but individually, like it knows enough about OpenGL 4.6 to be able to do this. I do this for the fun of it. Okay, I do this because I enjoy typing out code, and syntax isn't an important like bottleneck to me. Like the ability just to produce loads and loads of syntax isn't an important bottleneck for me on this personal project. So why would I use AI to churn it out when I can have plenty of fun just kind of going through it, talking about it, you know, teaching a bit, explaining stuff. That's kind of my philosophy. Press the button. Press the button. I've done it. Okay, so basically the name of the game is to expando this to also cover the other two textures. So the first thing we need to do is fill them out. I suspect they're not even filled out in load models, right? So that's is this font? I can't remember what the font size I used, by the way. Is this large enough? Does it need a beginning? Can you all read this? How do I handle memory? RAI, mate. But I just use the standard library containers. Yeah, coding's a hobby, right? This is a hobby for me, and I think it's fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. How's that? Is that better? Okay, so we can see here we load the texture, whatever load texture does when it's at home. Okay, this is all the SDB nonsense. That's fine. That all looks perfectly cromulent. So I think so. If I remember correctly, passing the file, the model file, yields out a file name for the relevant kind of slots. So we had, here we go, Famish. So we have base color, okay. No, not base, file name, here we go. Yeah, null opt is an empty optional, right? So it just allows me to say, because the type of this is an optional, and it's just basically it's just a way of me saying that there's an out here. Yeah, I have thoughts on async. Like, I eventually will probably remove it. I think eventually we'll probably burn a couple of streams on building out a proper async pipeline with like. Again, like code that processes it all and puts into a specific format and then embeds that in, yada, 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 and then we can integrate that into CMake. But for now, we'll just hoof async along and pass it each time. Yeah, you need to null up sometimes. I think in the case of ternaries, you can't, something to do with type deduction, you can't always use empty braces to deduce an empty optional. Sometimes you need null opt. But again, like I think here this is more obvious. Oh, indeed. Okay, what am I doing in my life? So that's it. You have to query the texture by type, and that type is somewhat nebulous based on the author of the asset, what they called it, and then how that translates into the FBX file, then how async kind of interprets that. So base color appears to be the one that we want for the albedo. So yes, this is it. We get out an async string type, which is in no way convertible to a real string type. Which is in no way compatible with the rest of their API. So we get that out. We construct a real path from it, and then we get the path name, and then that's the base color. So I think And what's that? What's this magical 0 I've got here? I've got a magical 0. Is that because you can have multiple base colors? What's this do? Index path. So I'm glad this is on its own line, because I missed that. So it goes type index. Definitely want a 0 index. I feel this needs to be pulled out. And let's do something like how do I write C++ code? I think it's something like auto get texture file name some number of args the string. No. Oh, actually, what's file name get you? Path. Okay. The file system. Oh, I bought assets. From scratch does not include anything creative, by the way. Like, I've just purchased those. So I'm going to need whatever one of these is. I think this is something like an AI material. Probably want that const. And then something like that. And then whatever this is this a num? Oh, because it thinks it's PBR material, so you have to use the special PBR ones, obviously, even though we don't have a PBR pipeline. An AI texture type. Type. So this will be type. There you go. Boom. C++. Done it. Nailed it, mate. Completed it, mate. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with allocating every frame because I've not done anything to profile it to suggest that's an issue. Like, obviously will have some performance impact, but I'm not optimizing for that. The game itself won't be so... I'm willing to... Basically, the way I view it is I'd rather code for simplicity using known primitives and known patterns, and then profile it if memory is an issue, and then optimize specific parts of it if needed. That's kind of my philosophy. Is I'd rather keep, as a one-man band trying to do this, I'd rather keep the code simple and not over-architect something until I need it. I'd rather take the time to refactor something when I know it's needed, rather than trying to guess that I need it now. That's why I'm just using like the standard containers rather than doing anything crazy with allocation. Should we just return the path? It's a relative path though, isn't it? As in, there was a reason we did it this way, and I think because we have to construct the full path. Here, because we have to insert that it comes from the textures because of the root. The assets are loaded relative to the root of the assets directory, which means it has to know that, it has to look inside the textures subdirectory. So I think that's why we do it. We could actually just bundle it all up in here. In fact, that might actually work. We could do return the format, textures, of course. Ooh, so I'm gonna return it twice. Dot string because there is no std format overloads yet for file system. I think that's coming in 26 and GC doesn't have it yet. But yeah, okay, fine. So this now should become what do I call it? Like, can't remember what I called that function. Get texture file name. Get texture file name. Material. God, if you thought I couldn't type before. AI texture type base color. AI texture type base color. What's it not like about that? No viable conversion. Data buffer. Should. Oh, it does need to be a string. That's why. That work. Okay, fine. So we should be able to get rid of all this gubbins now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to check it still works for this, and then we should be able to just extend the rest. Oh, perfect roast dinner. I mean, whether you would extend roast dinner to be here we go. This is what I was explaining. Sometimes, just now. What was I talking about? Roast dinners. Okay. Do you include Christmas dinner, the most important meal of the year, as a roast dinner? If you do, then that is the ideal one. Other than that, got to be beef or lamb. Then, in which case, my answer is Christmas dinner. I won't make that into a short. That'll really confuse people. Yeah, I could not be. I would normally do. I'm pretty diligent on doing a roast every Sunday, as is tradition. I just could not be bothered to do one today. Okay, so that's still, well, I mean, apart from this weird graphical glitch, right? That continues to work in the way that it worked before, which means the albedo is loaded, but the renderer is still broken. I mean, lamb is just like crazy expensive. Reedy, thank you very much for the kind words. Very kind of you. Okay, so now I think we can just like start slapping all these in. Normal base. Normal camera. I'm sure, mate. If you're sure about that, I'm not convinced. But and then this will probably be the metalness. Because we're kind of abusing the metalness of the PBR for the specular. I have like a mini rant about roast lamb, right? Okay, which is like, so if you go to Tesco's, right, and at Easter time they always do half price lamb legs, which is great, which is like the correct choice. but they're all of a sudden they're from New Zealand. So it's if they want to offer you discount lamb, it's cheaper than to fly it halfway around the world than it is to support British farmers, which I find quite egregious. So I then just go and get it from the butchers. But anyway, that's my rant about UK supermarkets over for the day. What have I missed here? I was kind of like rapidly changing stuff and not really paying attention to what I was doing. It was where? Asimp is just like a stopgap for now. I'll probably replace it in the future. What am I? What? Why would I need? These are all part of this object that I'm constructing, right? Using aggregate initialization. Oh, thank you. Got there in the end. No, it's been a long day. So actually, let's go for broke and see if we can do this. So what I need to do is define a bunch of default textures with like known indexes. So like a 1x1 pixel white, black, and pink that I can use as default textures. So if for instance we don't have one of these, presumably the normal map should just be default blue or something like that. So it shouldn't make any difference. We do the best we can with what we've got in the time that we have, and that is Asimp at the moment. Hello. Okay, so let's do auto normal index equals text index plus 1. Okay, and then if const auto n equals model dot. So if we have one of these, then let's change the albedo to normal. That should work. I need to change this basically to generate a name, but I don't think the model currently has ownership of a name. So we need to change that as well. Model should have some sort of, probably just a file name, right? But at least some unique identifier associated to it. And then we can just build those up with by this. So we could have like model name underscore albedo. Oh, well, I hope your journey into C++ is treating you well. It's a tough one to start with, so all the best to you. Specular index equals text. Because yeah, what I really need is the texture manager to pre-build itself with some default textures and expose those as statics or something like that. So I'm like, hey, texture manager, give me the default pink one, and then I can just slap that wherever I want. But all these things sound good when you're just chatting about them. Ideas are cheap, execution is expensive. Why am I typing this out like a chump? CFL specular. So now we should have all these. We should be able to say, hey, add all these in sequential order to the material manager, give us back the index to the first, which means everything references it sequentially. Bish bash bosh. All makes sense in my head. It does mean node, does that mean... No. What does this do? If these are the default ones, I'm not storing this again. What does this do? Is this template? It is. What is material data when it's at home? Oh, this just builds the material data struct that's reflected in the GPU. I remember now. Okay, fine. Ignore me. I'm not a massive fan of LeetCode. Like, I think they're interesting self-contained problems, but I'm not a fan of them as in terms of like, oh, my code didn't run. Assessment, because it's like, do you know this one weird algorithm that you would just look up anyway, or probably just ask an LLM? I think project-based work is better. If you can think of small projects that are kind of self-contained, that will help you break down slightly larger problems into smaller ones and kind of tackle them step by step, rather than just like, how do I invert a binary tree with a hash map? I'm very unopinionated on Docker containers and distros. I use Ubuntu because it seems to work, but like, I don't know, whatever meets your requirements, I guess. Okay, why did this not crash? Why did this fail? Fail to open file. Interesting. So we have a missing file path. So that's, we'll have the stack, file resource loader. I want the load data buffer. I want the one in load model. So in at graphics utils 192. Okay, so couldn't find the normal one. Great. Yeah, I was looking for which one of these failed. So it can't find the normal camera. I wonder if it's just under something else. Is it just like a normal? There's normals. There's also a specular, so... Give it a go. Okay, so 192. This is going to be a massive pain. I think there's... and other English sentences. Just ask your local friendly oracle. Like most LLMs will be able to give you a decent set of starting projects, especially if you kind of give it some details on like what you're interested in and what your current skill level is. Otherwise, isn't there there's a couple of GitHub repos, I can't remember what they are, which have like curated list of projects. So either or. Okay, so why is... So there's basically two issues that I have in my mind now. One is that I am not correctly finding the mystical tag that Asimp has assigned the normal texture path to, or the other one is that this particular asset just doesn't have a normal map, but I'm pretty sure they all do. So this is... So what's loaded meshes when it's at home? So loaded meshes is the span of all the meshes. So this is found SM corner 018XX, one of my favorites. Let's go and have a quick look in the assets file and see what we've got, see what we're working with here. Hold on one moment. Cooler, projects, oops, secret assets. I think these are the secret assets. What's it called? So we've got metal plate O2 base color, right? So that implies the existence of other metal plates. We've got metal plate O2 normal, right? Looks like a... Oh, it's not great. Sure as a normal map. So what's that going to be under? I'm going to have to enumerate them all, aren't I? And try and find out which one. I think we had to do this before, didn't we? Didn't we have to write some little test code which ran through them all to try and find... That's how we arrived at base color. Okay. Right, okay, fine. So let's do for auto E equals AI type. What we got? We got none to metallic roughness. So none E is less than... This works because it's a C num and it's not properly scoped. Cannot equals E. Fine. E equals AI texture type stood. You're not gonna like this one. To underlying E plus 1. I'm pretty sure that should work. I don't really want to spend like an hour finding the type system. Fine. I guess you can't use brace initialization on an enum. Who knew? Okay, fine. That is, if you're learning C++, don't do that. Okay, so then what's my actual code? I want to do you log debug to get texture file name material E stood to... I'm just gonna manually look through the if I had reflection, I could automatically to-stringerize that enum, but I don't. So we're just gonna run through them all and have a quick look. I don't think you can do two underlying E plus 1 because the expression E plus 1 is still invalid, right? You still can't add an integer to E, which is the enum. You have to first convert it to an integer and then do the arithmetic. Okay, so it's so this worked out quite nicely actually. So it has a metallic and a roughness. Exciting. So I want 13 and 15. I feel offended that I definitely had that earlier. Unless it was missing on another one. Let's leave that logging in because it will tell us if it's failing on another one, which may just not have a normal map. There's like I think there's like a transparent material somewhere. It probably doesn't have it might be that actually. Yes, it's this, isn't it? So this needs to remain optional. So it was working, and I did have it right. It's loading all these. It's getting down to whatever this is, which only has a 12 and a 14. I mean, two underlying isn't really an idiom, right? It just all it does is just converts it to the integral type that backs an enum, because with an enum class you can change the underlying integral type, right? So all it does is just cast it to that. I think what I need to do is modify. Okay, so here's an interesting C++ philosophy design question for you, right? What I should probably do, and what I will do, is I need to do something like if like path dot empty, right? Return. Okay. You put it in a ternary, you can touch it up, whatever, right? But basically, I need to signal. So this could return like an alternative success, right? It either loads it or it doesn't if it doesn't exist, right? And then we can then chain that with something else to put in a null opt or whatever. Absolutely fine. I don't like this. I don't like using the empty string as like an invalid state, although it technically is true in this case because there is no world in which an empty path is valid. So this probably is correct, but I would normally wrap this in an optional and basically be super explicit about whether that is there or not. And I probably will do that, but I just kind of want to go through the philosophy of why first. Like, I don't like saying like, oh, if I've seen loads of code and I've even written some of it myself before, where you return an empty vector to signify like the failed state or the alternative success state, whereas really it shouldn't exist at all. But in this case, you could argue very much that an empty string is an invalid file name. So yeah. Oh, out variable. That's just what we C programmers. There's no need for out parameters. Just keep returning more and more stuff. But I personally, for my own sanity, and because I think it makes the interface clearer, I think this should be this. So actually, so now what we can do is we can do return if it's empty. So this here, right, won't work. Someone's saying, oh, why do you need null opt? You can't. This won't work. You would need still, just because of the way the type inference works, you need still null opt here. He says, and now in classical type. Oh, I need to actually construct an optional, don't I? Yeah, and I can use ctad there. Something template, constructor template, auto deduction, whatever. I don't need to put std string in here because it can infer it. That's from C++ 17 onwards. Yeah, exactly. You are. I think you're abusing the type by basically expecting people to infer that the empty state is invalid, whereas you can be super explicit with optional. This is an internal function inside util code that a user, if this were an engine, which it's not, would never have to call. So you could argue that you could keep it slightly simpler, but I try to practice what I preach everywhere. Class template argument deduction. I knew it was something around that. Okay, fine. So now what we need to do is I think a transform is coming. The monadic operations on optional, I think is what we're getting at here. So, is that going to work? Oh no, it won't. So annoying. Because this is an optional, and this is an optional of a different type, you can use the monadic operations to transform it from one to the other. but we have to pass it into here. I just don't think that would work. Okay, fine. I think just gonna have to suck it up. Yeah. I'm sure work out what the best way of doing this is, because there's going to be a little bit of duplicate code here. It might just be a lambda. Is it? Auto. Give me a second while I puzzle this out. AI texture type. Third. Optional. Texture data. And then we can do if const auto file name equals get texture file name material type file name return load texture resource loader. Oh, I'm gonna pass that in. Resource loader dot load data buffer file name and stood not. I think that's right. So then we can just do load text AI texture base color. Bish bash bosh, nice. I mean, I say nice. I've no idea if it's going to work, but it's AI. I do feel there is a simpler way of writing this. Is there any reason not to do the null op check in the load texture function itself then? Which load texture here? This doesn't take an optional, right? I'm not sure I understand your question. Apologies. I really feel like there's a better way of doing this. Yeah, like load data buffer can't take an optional. It doesn't make any sense. You're always, like, the contract to that is you're always loading the data that you've asked for, right? The fact that it's wrapped in an optional is the semantics of the surrounding calling code, that we may not be able to retrieve that. So it's up to us to check it before we hand it over to a function. Like, not every function, it doesn't make sense in this case for you to, like, hey, could you optionally load this data? Like, you either load it and you succeed or it's an error. Can I return get texture file name material type dot transform so return optional. I think unless does load texture already return an optional? Hang on. Well, I've gotcha. That. I feel like I'm close. No viable conversion from rows. What does load texture give me? Is an optional. So that is indeed an optional texture data. Don't want to spend too long on this, but I just returns a non. Oh, does it automatically wrap this in the optional for me? Oh, it does. There we go. Now we're C++ing. That's much clearer. Just a few errors. Just a few. Just a few errors. Just a few errors. Here we go. One. I guess I can get rid of this anyway. Don't know why it's suddenly done like that. Wait, just don't print it out. I mean, if it would render, if it would composite them, that looks like what I want, right? That looks like a perfectly chrominant normal map and specular map. But we're gonna have to fix that because it's a little bit sad. I have no idea how to even begin diagnosing that. I think we're probably just going to strip code out until it. God damn it! And it never ran again. Come off it. I might have to stop and fix this. Oh, all right, that looks good. Obviously, we don't have tone mapping in or anything at the moment, so the colors will clamp with a bright enough light. But that looks pretty... That's pretty good. Can I bring out one of the lights? If I select nothing, can I... It's pretty sweet. I think everything's relatively shiny. I want to get out of this blue handle here. You go. That's pretty good. Pretty pleased with that. Ship it. I'm going to do a stream in the future, I think, where we do some optimizations on the renderer side. Like, there's a lot of redundant data stored here. I think we can like recalculate this based on the depth buffer, and we can combine certain parts. We could probably stuff this into the alpha channel of this. So I want to get it all working reasonably stable, and then we might do some optimization paths, sort of like streams in the future. Yeah, there's quite a lot of like it feels like there's different materials. Do you know what I mean? I think the light's right. It's very hard to tell sometimes, but I think the normals are correct. Let's see if we can wander around. Oh, whoa, way too fast. Let's slow that right down. We need to calm the fuck down in there. It's nice detail as well. Like, I'm really pleased with this asset pack. I think when we get some tone mapping on it and like a decent skybox and some better lighting, I think this could look pretty sweet. Okay, let's comment this up, and then let's go, and we're gonna have to start figuring out. We've got an hour left. Let's see if we can fix that renderer bug, and then we need to start doing proper picking, AABB testing, and then we need to build out a little level editor, because the Imguizmo also has snapping, so we can make it so they all snap together on a grid, so everything will always be aligned. So we literally should be able to preload all the models, stick them in a drop-down box, and then start building out a level. And I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'd like to think given unlimited time, I could do anything. I just don't think it's worth unlimited time. I'm not that interested. Like, I'm in no way an advocate for piracy, and Denuvo was a academic curiosity to me, especially the earlier version, and one of the reasons why I looked at the earlier versions. I have no interest in like being on the cracking scene or anything like that. So I think given unlimited time, I would probably spend it doing other things. What do you mean stream count? As in like how many streams we've had? We've 6. This is the 17th stream. Okay, so let's just so load all model textures. Okay, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this? So sometimes it renders sweet fuck all. And other times it gets stuck like not clearing it. I guess one thing to do is we could cut out the light post-processing effect. So we're using a deferred renderer, right? So we fill the G buffer, and then we use a separate stage to combine that with the lighting. So we could just output one of the raw buffers like just blit one of those straight over. So I really want ASAN and UASAN, but I've been struggling to get it to work with my build setup. Also, although I'm using GCC, it has a bit of it doesn't work that well with MinGW. So I am, to my own detriment, not really able to use those, which is a bit of a shame. So unfortunately, we have to do this the hard way. Yeah, well, I mean, we could just, right, I tell you what, first things first, let's top to bottom the code. Let's just do a little code review. Just a little code review. Let's have a chat. Remind everyone how the renderer works. So, so when we call render, we render a scene, okay? We bind the gbuffer render target, and then we clear it. I think that seems pretty reasonable. And then we use the gbuffer program. So far so good. Then we write the camera data into its associated SSBO. We then bind the SSBO for the vertex buffer. So all of our mesh data is in one massive buffer, and then we just create render commands for that, basically. So we bind the SBO, we bind the camera SBO. AC wants a comment. Where do you want it? Quick. Which code would you consider unreasonable for me to put that on? Give me a line number. I mean, scene is just the struct at the moment, right? With all this gubbins in, and like because it's got references, I have to construct it all straight up. So yeah, I'm pretty sure scene is chrominant. I'll put it in the constructor. Sorry, there's as an aside to promote Twitch engagement, every now and then I enable some special perks that you can spend your fake internet points on, which allow you to pick a comment or a git commit message to kind of be forever enshrined in the code. Daz so far has these two. So I'll do... it's not there very often to prevent it being polluted, but it is a little bit of fun. I also like the irony of it actually not being on any code. I think that's actually immensely funny to me as well. There you go. Twitch. What's the word I'm looking for? Yes, comment redeem. I was trying to think of something witty, but my brain is too redeem. Okay, fine. Right. Okay, so we write that, then we bind the let's get rid of this. Okay, fine. Then we bind the vertex data, we bind the camera data, and then we bind the single VAO that we need in order to make everything. Oh, then we bind the index buffer handle. Yeah, sorry. Do we bind? We bind the dummy VAO once. That's all we need. Because we're doing vertex pulling, and then we build the command buffer based on the scene. I think that's fine. I think that just builds up these. This has been working for a while, so I'm inclined to think it's not this. Write that in enable and then enable it. So we write the commands into the GPU. We have the the cohesive bit set. So we just like slap that straight to the GPU. We then bind that and the material, which has the GPU global structural material data, so we can just index into that, and then the same for the textures. Then we issue the MDI call. So this just like draws the whole scene in one single call, which is pretty sweet. We then write the light data into the buffer, bind the light path frame buffer, clear it, use the light path program, stick into its uniforms the index, because even the textures backing the render targets are all effectively bind as textures in the global array. So we stick the indexes into them so it can have access to those. We then make sure that we still have the vertex buffer bound because it has to still render something, right? It's just a 2 triangle quad over the full screen. Set that. Bind that. We have the post-processing command buffer, which contains just one single draw command, which is pre-built, so we don't have to build it every frame because it's just going to say draw a quad. And then we issue an MDI call for that. We then do some bookkeeping on our triple buffering of these various things, and then we call post-render scene. Post-render scene, I do wonder if it's part of that, because post-render scene is actually a virtual function which will call into the debug renderer, which will then call back into this. Coherent, thank you. So the debug renderer, this does quite a lot of crap now, unfortunately. Calls post render. The first thing it does is call back into this. This blitz it to the back buffer, and then does all the mgui gubbins. Yeah, it always calls it, right? So it basically, it doesn't matter whether you have the debug renderer like instantiated or just the regular renderer. It effectively guarantees that post render is always called, and if it's not enabled, then it bombs out. The wiggle swap buffers is in here. So after we've finished render call, we then swap the buffers, and that just calls swap buffers for the DC, and then checks if the mouse is locked. I don't know why it's done there and swap. That seems pretty grim, but hey ho. But it's not. Should it be wiggle swap buffers, or should it just be the straight up swap buffers with the DC? Yeah, but uninitialized memory access to like what? Because that in what sense would it not be issuing those draw calls, right? So, I mean, you game, I think, just use swap buffers. I'm not saying it's right, but that hasn't changed, right? And this, I'm trying to think when this issue came in. Could it be the camera position? I mean, that would potentially make sense as to why we're rendering a black screen, but it wouldn't make sense why certain parts of it don't get cleared, right? Yeah, so let's just... So where do I... So I think if we just construct the renderer like this, right? This should, in theory, just still work the same. Of course, I do rely on that. It feels like something to do with frame buffers or not clearing something or something invalid on the OpenGL side. Okay, so that definitely doesn't work, right? And obviously I can't now enable the debug overlay because it's no longer there. So it's not that. What I want to do is I want to just split out one of the G buffer channels. I can't remember. Don't I need to set? Isn't there something like GL? Rent. There's some rune you need to inscribe to activate the read buffer, right? Because if I just do oh, is it because I'm unbound this? No, it shouldn't make a difference because I want actually no, I need it to be unbound because I want to write unbinding it effectively binds the default one, which is the one I'm blitting to. I don't think it's a C++ issue per se. Like, I don't think... also, it's built without any optimizations anyway, and with debug symbols. So I think we're already building under that. Really bad programmer. Hello. Okay, what I want to do is change light pass to G buffer RT, right? But don't I have to set the read channel on it or something? Let me just... Oh, I'm not signed in. There's definitely some rune you need. Because it's got multiple render targets, right? So... But I can't remember what... I literally can't remember what it is. It's not looking good. Because otherwise, how does it know? Unless it just defaults to the 0th one, which would be the albedo. Let's just see if this works. We had to do this in the previous project with all the multi-sampling. We had to down sample the multi-sampling. We had to set something. Oh, that could be my bad code though. Hang on, let me just... Oh, where is it? Render. Named... Ah, here you go. This is it. I need... GL named frame buffer read buffer. There we go. That's what I want. And then I want to do G buffer RT program dot frame buffer dot native handle and then 0, which will be the albedo output. If that makes a difference. Okay, so I don't think it's... So something else. So let's remove all the light code, right? So this is where we draw... sorry, I need obviously still need the bookkeeping in the end. Okay, so all this chuff here is just doing the light pass for the deferred renderer. Okay, so now let's just render out the G buffer, the albedo part, and see if we get that. If we don't get that, then we're going to modify the program to just output red and just see if it's running at all. Okay, so that's not great. How do you learn to read and understand decompiled code? Yeah, it's just like reverse engineering is trying to go backwards, right, to what a programmer was intending to do from the output. So you kind of need to have some understanding of like how to program, I would say, and like understanding what programmer intents are. So I'd write little C programs and then decompile them and start trying to pick out like patterns that the compiler uses to turn your C code into assembly. I've pressed the button. Okay, right, so let's do assets, shaders, gbuffer, frag. And let's do, so location 0 of the output is the color, right? So let's do vec4 1.0, 0.0, 0.0, 1.0. Right, okay. Now that's interesting. But I guess that could just mean it's not rendering. I guess that doesn't actually prove anything, because if the camera data is balked, then it would render nothing. What we actually want to do, okay, assets shaders, is do this in the light pass, right? Okay. Because this has no camera. Okay, it just renders a full screen quad that just exists in the right place. So let's go back to renderer, undo this, go back, and let's just see. So this should just be all red because it's just rendering a full screen quad. Something weird is going on, like really weird. That is so bizarre. Yes, we can run it under a debugger. Hold on one moment. I did get all this fixed. Okay, I think, is this the right project? Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's just go away that. No, apologies. Text is a little bit small, but I kind of need to, we'll get there. Okay, so let's do, where's it? Build the command buffer. Let's stop here and debug it. Let's see what happens. What's going on? I stopped. Right, I stopped. Okay. So command count is 9. So it's trying to render 9 things. There could be 9 things in the scene. I can't remember how many sub-objects there were in that one, but 9 seems reasonable. And then our object data, material index 3, material index 4, material index 5, because these are all separate materials because they all have separate indices. What's that? What? Where's object data? Oh, it's a matrix. That's right, it's the model matrix. That's fine. Yeah, I was like, what kind of model only has like 16 elements? But I'm being stupid. That all seems fine. And then what's the FN F10? Obviously, like I do appreciate how every single debugger has a different set of hotkeys for stepping over. It's really nice that. Let me draw it. Write that in there. Bish bash bosh 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 bosh, and then so FN11, and out here. What is the light pass RT anyway? That's fine. So it swaps it, and it literally is blank. Like the OpenGL debug layer is like fine. Do you know what I mean? It's not throwing an exception saying there's like anything invalid. I guess we could double check the camera data, although that wouldn't explain why the light buffer is empty. Where do we write the camera data? That comes from the scene, doesn't it? Let's have a quick look at the scene. So we have 9 entities. Camera, these will look reasonably sane. Projection looks like a matrix to me. Looks like a view matrix to me. What am I missing? I'm of course open to any and all suggestions people have. Because I want to blit it to the default back buffer, right, which would be 0. And they're all the same size. And I only want to blit the color bit, which I think by default is layout 0 anyway. We've got half an hour of this, so we better get to it. Yeah, scope maybe. Like none of these are like they're all member variables, right? So they're all scoped to the lifetime of the class, which is initialized at the beginning of main anyway. There's very little sort of stack-based state here. These are just indexes. These are just integers. Yeah, it's true. We could get bisect to see if we can figure out what that might be useful. Let's have a look. Have I even got like a commit that I know works? Let's. Hang on, I've got a bunch of stuff here. Let's. So let's revert all this. Let's just discard this. Okay, let's try. Let's check out this one. See if this works. Most of the commits should be standalone and atomic and build by themselves. Oh my goodness, has it not worked at all in this entire feature, ever? Yeah, I just... So this is more consistent, so every time I pop this up, it starts. So there's definitely something in here. Do you see? It took a little second. It wasn't instantaneous then, was it? Okay, so the problem is though, like, I mean, we could check out this one. Yeah, I was just wondering if it's a graphics issue. I maybe I've updated the graphics driver. I've no idea. It's been 3 weeks since I've done this. Okay, well this seems fine. This is old. This. Oh, I still got. Oh, because we built the deferred renderer before we did the model loading. Interesting. Okay, so is this consistent? If it is, we'll bisect from here. It's just an awful lot to bisect. Okay. So let's do. I don't know how to do it in lazy git. I might just. So where do we have the good one? Was it? It was before Asimp. It was this one, wasn't it? I think Windows is definitely updated. Okay, fine. So this is good. So we can do. Let's just quit out of this and do git bisect. Good. Okay. So if anyone's never used it before, git bisect, basically you give it a good, when you have a bug and you know you've introduced it somewhere in the past, you mark a commit that you know where it's good, and then a commit where you know it's bad. And what it does is it checks it does a binary search. So it checks out the one in the middle, you do some tests, and you basically mark that as bad or good, and then it'll go either side of it and halve it. So basically, rather than testing every single commit, you only have to test log n commits. And if you can script up the pass or fail test, you can give it a script and it'll just do the whole thing for you. This looks bad. So that is, I think we would consider this bad. So I then do git bisect bad, and then it will check out the next commit in a binary search. No, I'm using FBX. This is why you want small atomic commits, by the way, because it enables things like git bisect. And if this works, it'll be amazing. If it doesn't work, then I would have just wasted 20 minutes of your life. Ooh, promising. Okay, pretty consistent. I don't know how many times we go at this before we like it was failing pretty badly before. I think this is good. Yeah, I would agree. Oh no. So when it doesn't, so you have basically two choices when a commit doesn't build. You can either skip it and it'll try and find the next one either side of it, or you can patch it to basically build and then kind of continue with your life. Let's have a quick look at why this is. See if we can just make a quick change. This is too few arguments to function load model. What did I change and not? I need to pass in the resource loader. Nope. What? Data buffer view model data and then the resource loader data. Okay. I can't remember if Git reverts your patches for you when you move onwards. Okay, positive. It'd be something like weird, like a commit where I just made a comment change or something, and be like, ah. Okay, fine. I think I'm happy to mark this as good. So this is it. After this, we should know which the bad commit is. Yeah, it's AC's commit. Okay, bad, right? Straight up bad. I mean, I definitely saw that not working, and this has got the textures in it, which was quite a big change. So this would suggest, yeah, okay, fine. So let's git bisect bad. Okay. At some point I integrated some changes and balked it. Okay, so that's bad. Here we go. This is the commit. So the first bad commit is this. So what's... So this was good, and then this broke it. So what do we change? We added that resource loader, which is the thing we had to do from the previous one. Oh, this is a little bit hard to see. Can I make this bigger? How do I want to see this in like full screen, please. Switch view. Nope. Okay, fine. I guess I just squint and hope for the best. Yes, that is a good idea. Let's bring it up. Commits. What's the hash? FA688. So this one here. I do actually prefer a side-by-side diff. That was one. Can I not? Where's fine? Do it the way I hate these inline things. I'm much for a side-by-side diff. Anyway, so fix that. I removed this code, which generated the entities in line, and instead moved it to a loop so I could do some extra computation and push back each entity. Why would that? Oh, is it here? Oh, thank you. That's better. It's basically the same, except the only difference is, I mean, functionally the only difference is that I'm pushing them back one by one. Yeah, so this is loaded from here, right? Whereas this was loaded once at the beginning. I mean, here. Is it because I've introduced... So actually, I'll tell you, there's maybe a couple of things we can do here. So let's check this back out. Let's revert this back to... Ooh. So let's just use the preloaded textures that we know kind of work from the previous one, those metallic ones. So although we're loading all these and everything, we're never actually going to use them. It could be, so the naming is just a GL tag, and we could check it. It could possibly be it. I'm not convinced, but maybe that is a good point. Yeah. I think we've got to do that. So that's. Although it shouldn't matter because we're not actually using any of these, right? So in fact, actually, we can strip all this down. I've got an index anyway. Oh, because I'm using a enumerate. What, full? Yeah, the names are also for the debug as well. I'll probably use a bespoke format like I did in the previous project. I'll probably just pull in my TLV code from last time. Okay, so this... So weird. Okay. So is it the loading code? Am I invalidating? And so this seems to work, right? Oh, interesting. There was a move on the O. Oh no, I move him here. Is the act of loading a texture forking it? Because that will have an impact on the GPU, right? Because it will update the global index. Right, so that's... I bet this will... I wonder if this will break it. Like not even using it, just loading it. Interesting. So is it the sticking it in the manager, or is it just merely... And let's just rule out this as well. It's append only, right? So you should only ever increase... adding a new texture to the global array shouldn't invalidate any of the previous indices because it's an append only operation. There's no way to ever unload the texture. So it's looking like it's the... Unless that last change I just did unless the last change I did just fix it, but I suspect it's this is now the unhappy line. Unless it uses that name internally. I don't think it does. Okay, right, so there's definitely... So what does this do? So we get the new... So let's get Texture Manager up, the actual state of it side by side. So this maintains, like a lot of our managers, a GPU buffer and a CPU buffer, okay? So this owns the texture data CPU side, and then the whatever GPU blob it squirts into it, and is responsible for effectively synchronizing those. It also owns I guess it's slightly different here because it's bindless textures. These are the bindless handles that are resident CPU side, and then it also owns the corresponding texture data. So when we start, we get the new index, right? So you always index into this global array, but it's append only. So in theory, adding new textures doesn't invalidate any previous indices. So we get the size of the textures, which will be the new index. If it's empty, it'll be 0. If there's one in there, you'll get 1, blah, 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 blah. We then take our texture and slap that into here. That should already have a bindless handle by just the contract that we have with the texture class. When you load a texture, it creates a bindless handle for you. So we then store that CPU side. We then resize the GPU buffer. Resize, this probably should be synchronized, but it basically will check that the GPU buffer is big enough to hold all the CPU data. If it's not, it will double the size of it or keep doubling the size of it till it is, and then it will sync that data across. I only use InPlaceBack here because the contract of InPlaceBack gives you a reference to the newly added object, whereas pushback always returns void. So it's just so I can just grab this new text without having to do .back afterwards. It's just me being lazy. It shouldn't make any difference. InPlaceBack and pushback will both allow you to pass in a forwarding reference, which, well, in this case, will both allow you to pass in an R value reference. So in this case, the X value produced by this. So that should be fine. This will synchronize the data across. Okay. It doesn't synchronize it. It does just resize it. This just makes sure that the GPU buffer is big enough to represent the CPU buffer data. It will then update, because this is considered a slow operation. Like, you shouldn't be adding loads of textures. You should just preload them all at the beginning of the game. This will then write all the CPU data into the GPU data offset 0. Yes, because this starts off as size of gluint64. And it returns new index. My guess would be here, because this is where there is actual logic, right? So we get a CPU buffer of type T, okay, which in this case will be a gluint64. Okay, so it knows the size of that. And then it has the buffer, the GPU buffer. So it calculates the size it needs in bytes, which is the number of elements in the CPU buffer multiplied by the size of the underlying type. Okay, right, that's fine. If the GPU buffer is less than or equal, I guess it's a bit tenuous here, but it doesn't really matter. Regardless, this will definitely check that if the GPU buffer is too small, then it will employ a sort of quadratic growth strategy, so you don't have to keep resizing it over and over again, because this will allocate a new buffer. So it'll keep doubling the size until it's big enough. So while the new size or the expected new size is less than the buffer size in bytes, double it. We then, in case the GPU is using the previous frame, we do a full synchronization here. Again, this is a slow operation. You shouldn't be doing it very often. And then we construct a whole new buffer with the new size and copy assign that into this is a reference. So the referent will be this buffer here. So this buffer will be copy assigned a new buffer. Well, it'll use, I guess, Copy constructed, sorry. Copy assigned? No, copy assigned, yeah. Unless I have a misbehaving copy constructor somewhere. In the right function, are we moving by size of unit and not by one or something? So right takes a data buffer view, right? So it's just a view of bytes and an offset, and then it just subdatas that in, right? Given to the offset, the data size and the data. But this point, this is just a span of bytes, so that should already be the right. There's no object size, right? Because it's effectively been serialized, unless like stood as bytes doesn't do what I think it does. Well, I shouldn't need GL get error because I've got the GL debug layer in like whatever it is, the debug callback set. So that's not been fired. So I'm not an expert, but I don't think there's any errors that only GL get error would catch that the debug callback wouldn't. We could look at the debug because I think I just checked for errors in the debug callback. There might be additional information that we need to log, which might be useful. I guess this uses the... Oh, interesting. So you can't... I think I know the issue here. I think I have seen the issue. This relies on the implicit copy. Oh, why does this work? How interesting. So basically, this class is by definition non-copyable because auto release is non-copyable, right? Not copyable. Okay. I guess it's got an implicit move constructor, which will... but that should be... So this must be using a move constructor, right? There's no other way this could work. But assuming auto release is well behaving, which it should be, this will have move operators. So the default, the implicit move constructor and move operator will just call std move on all the members, right? Which for this is a copy. For this, like I would hope that would just work because it's a standard type. So the only kind of only potential issue here is me, but like I'm pretty sure this is right. I've been using it, like I've been using this code for years in various projects. I'd be a bit worried if it didn't work. So when you are move assigned another auto release, I move construct it into one on the stack, and then I swap myself with that, and then return myself. This will then get out of scope and deallocate it, but it should be left in a... Is 0 a valid handle? Because it's not a pointer. These are for integral types, right? All the OpenGL stuff gives you integral handles, and a lot of Windows stuff does as well, which you can fudge into unique pointer, but has issues. So this is just, and it has other nice things as well, like the cast operators and stuff like that. What is... So as a template argument, you specify an invalid value, right? And then this will only call the deleter on it if it has a deleter, and if object is invalid. So if we go to buffer, right, we call GL delete buffers on the buffer. This is our custom deallocator, right? If the default constructed value for t, in this case, whatever it is, GL uint is 0, I mean, it works for me, like, and it was kind of useful to kind of go through the mechanics of it. The issue is, so the issue with unique pointer, right, is exactly the issue I'm potentially having now, but I can fix it, is that the default unique pointer assumes that null pointer is effectively the invalid value, right? So unique pointer will not call your custom deleter if the pointer it owns is null pointer. If you fudge it to store an integer and that integer is 0 and implicitly casts null pointer, you can't, like, if 0 is a valid integer, then it will not call the destructor on it if you've put it in there, right? So if -1 is your invalid value, then you're kind of out of luck. Whereas here, I can explicitly say what the invalid value is, right? So what I'm wondering is that, am I accidentally deleting buffer 0? So GL create buffers. Can that... is a uint, which does imply that I don't know, maybe I'm stretching. Also, oh, but this is for that's the question. Is 0 the invalid object ID? In which case this is fine, and then I don't worry about it. But for some Windows stuff, like you do have like -1 is the invalid value. Oh, I say this will cause us an issue in the future a lot of times. I mean, we could just check. All right. Yeah, we could just stick a breakpoint on that and just see if it is. Okay, so it's not that. I'd like to comment out some of the code in here, but the problem is, like, we are relying on it working elsewhere. I am stumped. I might have to call this in a minute, and then maybe we can think about this on Wednesday, because I'm still not feeling 100%, and my brain is dead. But, like, the fact that this kind of works, why does it not work in a loop, I think is probably the pertinent question, right? So we can call text manager here, like, where do we have these textures? Here we go. We can add these fine, although this is a loop as well, because it takes a vector of them. Because you can just give it a bundle of them and just add them all in one go, right? And all in this. gives you the first index it's added, and then transfers ownership of these into the array, and then does all the other gubbins. Yeah, I mean, the project's still quite early days. We're still building out the renderer tech, so it's like there's still a lot of just like architectural decisions still to be made. But this is a weird bug, and I just can't work out. Can I get my head around it? 44. I don't think so, because this basically rebuilds the CPU buffer. I think we had this discussion before, and we basically said it was easier just to rebuild the whole CPU buffer when you add to the textures, rather than kind of figuring out what the diff is and then calling through them and adding them in. This just takes all the textures, right, and then transforms them into a vector of the binary handles. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tricky. And then we resize it, and then we write the data out again, and then return the new index. Nothing really changes. I really can't understand why. Moving something else into the texture manager invalidates something else. It shouldn't matter though, because whilst yes, the vector will grow, like nothing, we do not hand out any references or pointers to the data in that vector. They hold just integral data. So if anything, we either hand out the data itself, or I think in most cases we just hand out an index, which is stable because we only append to it, right? And then we resynchronize it to the GPU every time it changes. Yeah, of course. Like, but appending to a vector or inserting to a vector will potentially invalidate pointers and references, and well, iterators to it as well. But I'm not handing those out, right? If you look at the interface for Texture Manager, right? At least I don't think I am. Maybe am I? No, am I? Oh no. Oh, maybe I am. No, this just recalculates it based on the index. As long as I'm not persisting this. Yeah, but it might not be the case, right? So it depends who's calling this, right? But I think this is only called from the renderer, right? I think. Who calls this? Renderer. And this is called I bet that, yeah, I think that's caching it, isn't it? has got better support for modules. I really wanted to use modules for this. I did start trying to set it up from the beginning, but it's just not quite there yet with GCC and CMake and my particular dev environment and stuff. I really wanted to use modules for this, but it was just too much effort to get going, so I didn't. But maybe the next project. Oh, yeah, I think that's it. I think I store pointers. Oh, God. Oh, what a rake to step on right at the end. Right in the face, that. Right in the face. Basically, I'm storing pointers in this frame buffer, and those are invalidated by adding more textures to the texture manager. I just want to point out that vector reserve is never the solution to a bug, by the way. It will, I mean, I guess you mean just to check now to see if it fixes it rather than the solution, which we can just check, yeah. Reserve is only ever an optimization. Your code should work exactly the same apart from performance with and without reserve. Yeah, I've tried to get it set up with myself. I'll have to have another go at it. Yeah, okay, fine. There we go. So actually, if we go back to main, we should be able to get all this gone now. Yeah, the bug was always there, but we were always effectively just preloading all the textures in one go. Oh, press the wrong button. I'm not going to do PBR. I will have tone mapping, or HDR and tone mapping, probably bloom, a few other post-processing effects, but I'm not planning on doing PBR. Oh god, sorry. Right, okay. The solution to this, I think, is simple. I think we just need to store because the contract of texture manager is append only. We should be able to store the indices, and then we just resolve that to the pointer at the point we need it. Probably does mean texture manager is like miserably thread unsafe now. I need to have a think about it. I need to have a think about what the solution is going to be. It's a little bit annoying that, but it will just be a bit of a change. Yeah, there might need to be the concept of like locking the texture manager whilst you're rendering, and then scheduling all the updates to happen effectively before the render. Like, you probably shouldn't be updating all the textures whilst you're rendering anyway, but that is quite interesting. That's quite interesting. That okay. I'm a bit of a deep dive there, using some like tooling to figure it out. So where was is it in the frame buffer? Yeah, so I think these need to become indices because everything should be indexed into the global array anyway. Where do I actually use these? So this gets come from color textures. Yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of curious where this is actually. What was it called? Color textures. It's just used in frame buffer. I never call. I wonder if this might not be. This might be more complicated than I thought. Well, I don't understand why that is though, because yeah, it's a pointer, right? But we are just copying out the native handle for it. So even if that pointer is invalidated later on, why would this now suddenly stop rendering? Right? Am I being stupid? Because this create render target only ever happens on construction of renderer. Yeah, but it shouldn't be invalid, right? Is what I'm saying, because texture manager.texture, given an index, will return you the pointer, right? So at the point of construction of this object, I was like, give me index 3, right? And then I inline pass that pointer all the way through here, and then it shoves it in the OpenGL hole, right? But it just extracts out the native handle. So why would that? I don't know if I'm maybe I'm not articulating myself particularly well, but what I can't understand is like I can't understand how this pointer is invalid at this point because I've literally just asked for it at that index and it's all single threaded. So between me requesting the pointer and me using the pointer, right, to just extract out an integer, or native, yeah, just extract out the integer, it can't have been invalidated. It was invalidated a priori to calling render, but it was invalidated after the renderer was constructed, I believe. In fact, this adds... No, I think the bug is here. I think... Okay, I know what's happened. Do I know what's happened? Yes. Like I'm aware of how a vector works under the hood. What I'm trying to do is pinpoint the point where I've done it. So this will potentially invalidate pointers. Where do I get? So here I get the... See, I don't understand this because sure, right here, I would have invalidated all those objects, right? All the iterators to everything in textures. Therefore, by also any addresses that I have to them. And again, here I would have invalidated them, but I don't. I request both sets of pointers here, way after all the stuff's moved around. Yeah, I'm from Blighty. I don't understand. I need to sit down with a beer, I think, and go through this quietly because I'm missing. I understand the symptom. I can't see the cause. Like I can't work out where I'm invalidating that pointer. I'm either holding on. I've either allocated that pointer and I'm holding on to it somewhere, or I'm doing it somewhere else. It's all single threaded at the moment, so I'm just sort of thinking about the future when we want to go multi-threaded and have like a job scheduler. Because then this gets moved out, which has all those pointers in it, so that's fine. South. As far as specific as I'll go. Okay, I'm going to call it. I'm going to sit down quietly and have a look at this because I'm obviously missing something fundamental somewhere. It's just really annoying. Like these pointers must be valid as far as I can tell, right? There's no way. Like this could have been invalidated. The only way it could be invalidated is, sorry, that pointer will be invalidated by future calls to the pushers in. But what I'm saying is I don't think I'm persisting that pointer. I don't think I'm ever using it. Why do I expose color textures though? That's the only place I could see it being used, but I can't see anyone who calls it. It's like it's never called. Because that will be this. To be honest, I probably should just remove this. Let's just. This is dangerous. But if those pointers are just used at the point of construction to pull out an integer to stick into the OpenGL hole, I can't understand where the invalidation is coming from. Okay, fine. I'll leave this in this state, but we can probably stick that up in the Git hole anyways for backup. And what? Oh, I don't need to Git bisect to end. Reset. Thank you. Right. Right. What do I say? We're on stream 17. Okay, I'll leave that there and we'll come back to it Wednesday. I might have a little poke around on it with a smaller font size and a bigger window. I might just sort of carefully trace those through. But yeah, I think where's I? That's it. That's all I've got. I hope that was fun. I think I enjoyed myself. Yeah, classic C++ pointer shenanigans, right? I mean, I say you could change it to a deck, but I think I need them to be contiguous in memory. Could just change it to a deck. But then I feel like I'm not properly managing my lifetime if I'm handing out potentially pointers I'm invalidating. Yes, I'm good to be back. It's good to be back. We'll do some on Wednesday. It'll be fun. Right, I need to go and have a beer and think long and hard about my life. I'll hang around on Discord for a little bit. You should come along. It'll be grand. Oh, actually, no. Is there free stuff? Is there free stuff? Oh, there is. There is. Nearly missed that out. congrats on 1 month of free YouTube membership with behind the scenes content, which is very minimal, and a secret room on Discord, which no one uses, but early access to videos, and there will be one in March. Actually made, powering through the jet lag, I made a surprising amount of progress on the next video yesterday, which is good. So that'll be hopefully soon-ish. Yep, YouTube allows me to give out 10 1-month trial memberships per month in blocks of 5. There you go. For free. Like, that cost me zip. Okay, cool. Anyway, thanks for coming along. I know, yeah. You can just about see me in the reflection there. But I can't move it now, so it's stuck. Anyway, I'll see you all anon.